Hi, everyone. My name is Angie Vishyanan, and I am the founder of Leg Up Legal. We provide a mentoring program that connects prospective law students to lawyers so that they can learn a little bit more about the legal profession before they decide whether or not law school is right for them. And we started hosting these free Zoom meetups at the beginning of COVID-19 for pre-law students, current law students, young lawyers, and paralegals, and anyone who's interested in pursuing a career in the legal profession to just join and be able to hear from lawyers and meet other people who are going through similar experiences. And so we've been bringing in guest speakers every week to come chat with you guys. And I'm very excited to introduce to you today Malia Brown. She is going to talk to you today about her law school journey and her journey being a lawyer, and then some of the resources that an organization that she has been working for has for pre-law students and current law students. So Malia, I will let you take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Angie. I'm so happy to be here, and it's great to see everybody here today. So as she said, my name is Malia Brown. Before I jump into Miss JD and all the resources we have available for pre-law students and law students, I'll tell you a little bit about myself, and then feel free if you have any questions to either drop them in the chat, or I'll open up some time at the end for you to ask me those questions. I went to undergrad, or I'm born and raised in San Antonio, Texas. I went to undergrad at Baylor University in Waco, Texas. I majored in sociology, and I also had a minor in child and family studies and in Spanish. I was really interested in both sociology and child and family studies. My focus was really the sociology of families. I was very interested in how the family unit really affects children, and how how you could see the outcomes from childhood into adulthood. And so with that, I was also told that, I should go to law school. I like to, I'm a good arguer and all those things that people hear. So I was always pushed more into a legal focus. My mom is also a paralegal. And so I was really introduced to the law at a young age. And so I was a pre-law student. I did really enjoy one of my favorite classes in undergrad was logic. And so that really cemented to me that law school would be a good fit for me. I didn't really like the constitutional law class you have to take in undergrad, poli-sci. And so that kind of like swayed me for a little bit, and I thought that maybe law school wasn't for me, but I kept on the path and I took the LSAT, and I did pretty well. For me, I was a poor college student, so I didn't have money to, pay for an LSAT course or anything like that. So I bought some books on Amazon, and I set out time each day, and I went to the library, and I studied for the LSAT. At Baylor, they offered prep courses. I think it was Kaplan. And if you were taking the LSAT, the MCAT, whatever, they would offer it every semester a couple of times for free. So I took a couple of those to make sure that I was ready for the LSAT, and I took it. And I only took the LSAT once because, again, I couldn't pay to take it again. And I applied to the schools I wanted to apply to, and I got into my first choice, which was Howard University School of Law in Washington, D.C. And so I packed up everything and left Texas for the first time, and moved to Washington, D.C. for the next 3 years. One of the reasons why I chose Howard University School of Law is because they had a family law certificate program. So since I was really interested in children and families and how those all played out, I thought that I wanted to focus in family law. And so I went there with the intention of going through the family law certificate program and really specializing in family law, which is what I did. So I really loved that experience. I was part of the Howard Family Law Society. I was president of that. When I wrote my journal article, it was on domestic violence and family law statutes across the nation. And I did many things that were focused on family law. I had internships with family law judges and things of that nature. So afterwards, after law school, I took the bar in Texas, and I passed, and I began working at Texas Rio Grande Legal Aid. Legal aids, if you're not familiar, are organizations that provide free legal services to low-income individuals of wherever. They're all across the nation. It's a great way for lawyers to get a lot of experience in a really specialized area. And so my specialized area was family law on behalf of domestic violence and sexual assault providers in South Texas. So I was a family law attorney for about 11 counties in South Texas. And so, like I said, you get a bunch of great experience. I had cases nonstop, unfortunately, because that just means that the main issue, domestic violence, is not slowing down. But I got very experienced practicing in front of many judges all throughout South Texas. So I practiced there for 3 years and decided that I wanted to move to Los Angeles. And I wanted to keep doing what I was doing just for a new community. And so I moved to Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles, where I continued doing the exact same work, family law on behalf of domestic violence survivors. And so that's where I am at now. My last day actually with LAFLA was last week. And I'm transitioning into a new role. I will be a professor at Southwestern Law. I'll be teaching legal writing for 1Ls. And so that's going to be my next adventure that I look forward to coming back and reporting on how that is. So while I was in law school, there were many resources available to me. Howard was an amazing school. If there's any questions about, if you're interested in Howard, I'd be happy to answer those at the end. One of the opportunities that was afforded to me in law school was getting introduced to Miss JD. In my second year of law school, I really wanted to find a mentorship program, something that paired me with a mentor, because what I found early on, pretty much at Baylor at undergrad, was my mom has always been, she's a paralegal. She's always been a huge resource to me. But I was a first generation college student. So there came a point in undergrad where oh, I see somebody said they're in Miss JD as well. That's awesome. So there came a point in undergrad where I had this very specialized question about, something that was going on in school, maybe an internship, I can't remember, but I just had the thought that, I can talk to my mom about this and she'll give me the best advice that she can, but she has never experienced this issue before. And I need to talk to somebody who has had this issue before and can tell me, what I should be thinking through from a place of experience. And that's when I was really introduced to mentorship and finding mentors and how important they are to you in growing in your professional life. And so at my 2L year, I was kind of faced with that same issue, that I had this very specialized question or questions, and I didn't really know how to navigate it. And I wanted to find a mentor who could provide me with some insight into my next steps in the law. And as I Googled, pretty much the only mentorship program for women of color, first generation law students, things like that, was the Miss JD Fellowship Program, which I applied to. And I was accepted into it. It's for 3L students. I'll talk about it a little later, but that's how I first got introduced to Miss JD. I was a fellow during my 3L year of law school and had all the opportunities that are afforded to a fellow with Miss JD. And after that year, I really wanted to learn more about Miss JD and get involved. And so I asked to stay a part, and I was appointed the fellowship coordinator. And so I was the coordinator of the fellowship program for goodness, the next 3, 4, I'm not sure, a lot of years. And I got to meet so many law students in that role and pair them with mentors and help them with their mentorship, relationship building. And it was a great opportunity. I like to think that I did good work for Miss JD, so they asked me to join the board about maybe 2017, 2018. So I've been on the board ever since. And I've just been able to rise through the ranks of being on the board. So I was a board member, I was the governance chair, and now I'm the chair of the board of Miss JD for my 2-year tenure. And so I love Miss JD, and it has a bunch of great resources for pre-law students, law students, and early career attorneys. It's an organization that supports the growth of women law students, pre-law students, and early career attorneys. And so there's many resources for everyone. And so I'm going to share a bit with you today. I see that there's already some in the chat. So there's some people who know about Miss JD. Angie shared some links. I'm gonna share some of our events that are gonna come up today with you as well. I'll put the links in the chat. And so I hope that you can join our online community and join our events. And it's a really great community to just meet with everybody, with like-minded individuals, and really learn about how you can use your voice in the law to promote yourself and people who look like you. So before I make the switch into kind of, what we have available for Miss JD, I do want to know, if there's any questions about my journey that I can answer now, that way we can split it up, and we can talk about what I just shared about myself and my journey in the law, and then we can talk more about Miss JD. if there, I'm reading the chat now, if there are any questions. If not, I'll continue to go on. And if you need some more time to think, that's quite fine. And at the end, I can answer questions that were about me and about Miss JD. So if anybody has a question, Angie, I'm not sure, do we open it up for them to say it out loud, or do we read it through the chat?
It's totally up to them. If they want to jump on camera and ask away, they can, or if they want to put it in the chat, they can do it there.
Okay, great. Well, please, somebody, anybody, if you have a question, I don't want to just hear myself talk on for the whole time. So please ask if you do.
Yeah, Malia, I think so while they're thinking about a question, if you're just now getting started to the world of pre-law and even just thinking about going to law school, but haven't really learned much about it, where should you start?
Yeah, definitely. So I was, I think, lucky in that Baylor University had a great pre-law program. And so I was a part of the pre-law organization. I can't quite remember, what it was called at the time, but we had a bunch of resources on how to prepare for the LSAT, excuse me, how to prepare for the LSAT, and they answered any questions that I did have. And then we will get into a bunch of the resources that Miss JD has for pre-law students as well that can help you start thinking about it. I'm gonna drink a bit of water real quick to clear
Sure,
my
yeah,
throat.
there's a bunch of questions coming in now, but I'll help collect them for you and I'll read them out loud to you. So just let me know when you're ready.
Okay, I'm good. Sorry about
Okay.
that.
No worries, no worries. All right. So we've got, did you do any internships in undergrad that made you interested in family law?
Oh, that's a great question. So I did do internships in undergrad, specifically for with the intention of going to law school, but they did not make me interested in family law. I'm thinking I didn't have any internships that were specifically family law. I kind of knew I wanted to do family law based on what I was studying in undergrad, and I knew I was interested in families, and I was interested in the law. And so I was like, family law, that makes sense. But I did do an internship. It was at, she did immigration law actually. And what I did is maybe it was the summer going into my senior year, I knew I needed to have an internship that was somewhat legal focused. I had some other internships, but I knew I needed a legal focused one. And so I was in a part of the NAACP. I was president of NAACP at the time. And so I went to our advisor and I told her that's what I was looking for. And she had a few friends that she put me in touch with. And I contacted them, and one reached out saying I can intern for her. So it's not that I necessarily even had an interest in immigration law. I just knew I needed that experience in a law office. And it was great. And it was really, I think it really made my resume stand out when I went to apply for law school. But I did not, unfortunately, have an internship in the family law realm before I went to law school. That was a great question.
Yeah, here, let me, so to that point, if you are trying to figure out, what sort of opportunities are available for prospective law students to get some experience in the legal profession, that's a question that we get a lot because one thing I didn't understand about this world before I entered it is that most of the time the internships that you see at law firms are for law students only. They don't usually go to the undergraduate level unless it's through like a special pipeline program that they've created. But some resources that you can use to find internships, either, you could intern for a court, you could intern for legal aid, you can intern for, some law firms will take college level interns, but it's just more rare than taking law school level. And you could intern at for your local legislature, so you could intern you could also intern for the Senate or the House of Representatives, or any number of internships to just get exposure when you're in undergrad. I think you can also intern for like state attorney general's offices. We actually have a handout of different opportunities, so I will drop that in the chat, but just wanted to let you guys know if that's something that you're interested in, that, you can feel free to reach out to me, and I'll drop the handout into the chat so you can take a look at it.
Awesome. And Angie, I read through the comments in the chat, and a lot of them are focused. I think I'll have an answer based on what Miss JD offers. And so I think there's one that I can answer that was about me specifically, and then I'll jump into Miss JD, since I think a lot of people have questions that we can answer with that. But to piggyback on what you just said too, like yes, the Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles, we have a bunch of internships for pre-law students, anybody who's not in law school or an attorney. And so if you want to get experience, Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles, you can intern virtually right now. And so that might be something that you want to do, or just look at the legal aid in your nation, in your county or your community across the nation. And you can find a legal aid there as well. So there's a lot of opportunities for law students. You just have to seek out the right ones. But yeah, big law firms, probably not, but I'm not an expert on big law firms at all. And so let's see, there was one that I wanted to answer. How long did you study for the LSAT? If I recall, for me, I studied about, once the semester started, so what's that, like maybe August, September, until the LSAT. But that was very long ago, so I can't say that with too much certainty, but I think there will be an answer from what Miss JD offers that I can give you there. What is your approach on networking was the one that I wanted to answer, because I think that is great. I love networking. I'm an extrovert, and so networking has always really come, I will say, quite easy for me. But I think networking is all about making relationships. I don't necessarily view networking as I'm trying to get to know you so I can move up, or I need to go and meet people so that they know my name. I think it's all about relationship building and what we can all do to meet our ultimate goal. So for instance, me and Angie met because both of the organizations and companies that we support, support pre-law students. And so it's mutually beneficial to us both. And we both have the same interests in mind, which is to help law students and pre-law students. And so that was networking for me, is building a relationship. And when I hear about great opportunities for Angie, I send them over. And when she has great opportunities for me, she sends them over. That's networking to me, and it's very genuine. And so I think that will lead me into the first thing about what Miss JD offers, is our online community. I think that lends great into how to have very, very natural networking, right? So our online community is where anybody who is a part of Miss JD, a pre-law student, a law student, or an early career attorney, can go and network with like-minded individuals. And so I dropped the link there in the chat if you would like to join us. There are so many, great supportive people in the community. On Fridays, we have a share your win. And so if you had a great win from the week that you've just been itching to share with somebody, you can drop it in there, and there's going to be a group of people in the comments cheering you on. We also have great groups and topics. And so you can join a group that's for parents or first generation law students, first generation college students, or military students, or you can join topics such as pre-law, or topics like leaderships. There's topics in there about internships, money, mental health, diversity and inclusion. So we talk about a lot in there, and you can share in there as well. And so that, I think, is a great way to start networking with other individuals in the legal world. It's not just women. There's a bunch of men in there. We have a discussion on male allies in there. And so I get that sometimes, like, well, I'm not a woman, can I still join? It's like, yes, this is our little group for anybody who wants to be a part of our community and who shares our mission in supporting women pre-law law student early career attorneys. So I hope you can join us in there. And I love to connect with people in there. So if you join us, please send me a message in there, and we can chat and maybe find a time to have coffee personally and talk one-on-one. Let's see. And so that's the first thing. Also in the online community, you'll get early access to our events. So I'm gonna talk more about what events and programs that we have, but by joining our online community, you'll be one of the first people to hear about the events that we have and get the early access to those. So first, since mostly everyone here, I believe, is pre-law, we'll talk about the things that we have for pre-law, and then this should answer a lot of the questions that it seemed like we got. So the Pre-Law Bootcamp, this was actually our very first year of having the Pre-Law Bootcamp, and I've been so excited about it. And so our Pre-Law Bootcamp, it started last fall, and it ended this year in March. And so it's a 12-week bootcamp for February 2021 LSAT test takers. And so they started in November, and I think somebody already in the chat said that the Khan Academy had great pre-law resources. And so what we do is we walk you through the 12-week, for 12 weeks, the Khan Academy, their resources. So we don't recreate the wheel and have our own resources. We send you to the Khan Academy, but we walk through it together. So you'll have a private group in the online community, which I've been all through our online community. The best group that I've been a part of was that Pre-Law Bootcamp group. The women in there and men were just very engaged. Even during, Black History Month, there was one participant who every month shared a fun fact about a Black woman in the law within that bootcamp group. And so it was a very engaged group. And so they participated in small study groups. They were checking in on each other and how far they've gotten. They attended webinars with law school faculty, practicing attorneys. I had a one-on-one with them, and even current law students. And then they even had office hours with law school admissions counselors as well. And it all culminated in March with a virtual law school fair where we had many law schools come and meet with the students and talk to them and have panels. That was in conjunction with our annual conference. And so that was just a fabulous event, a fabulous program that we're happy to start again in the fall of this year. And so I don't have the particular dates just yet, but if you do join the online community, again, you'll get early access to when we open up the dates for that. It's this last year, at least, I will say, I'm not sure if we're going to do it the same way this year. But you had to sign up by a certain time, and once you signed up, that was the last date, because they were walking through the materials together, and so you couldn't join late. And so if you want early access to that to make sure you don't miss it this year, definitely join the online community. So that is our premier program for pre-law students. That I think when I look through these questions. Like how do 0Ls prepare for their 1L year? That's something they talked about there. Can you lend some advice for those struggling with the LSAT? That's finding a community that you can talk about those struggles with. That's you can do that within the Pre-Law Bootcamp. There's questions about LSAT Prep. So I think a lot of that can be answered within the Pre-Law Bootcamp from, quite honestly, people who are much more closer to the issue. I was a pre-law student at one time, but at this point, it was almost 10 years ago. And so the advice that I had and the steps that I took might not be the steps that you need to take now in 2021, 2022. So then we go on to law school and what programs we have available for law students. There might be some law students here. And if there's not, I think it's very useful to sometimes attend law student focused events when you're a pre-law student to see if this is the area that you even want to be in. Because from my experience, at least, a lot of people go into law school and then after graduating, after taking the bar, realize that with the information they have at that point, maybe law, wasn't best for them. So why not figure it out before you go and get a bunch of debt? So one of the things that we have is our Leadership Academy for law students, which was great. So usually it's in person at Harvard University is who hosts us, but this past year, of course, was our first year going virtual, and it was phenomenal, actually, because before, we could limit it to the students who could get funding from their school to go to Harvard for that 2 days of events. And with it being virtual, we were able to open up to a lot more students, which is just phenomenal, and allows for much more diverse individuals to attend and participate. And so our Leadership Academy is basically a 2-day conference, again, in the fall, where we feature attorneys, thought leaders, and professional development professionals speaking on their personal experiences of women in leadership positions, and their advice on developing the professional skills necessary to become and support women in leadership. And so it is a great opportunity for law students to, there's not many, if any at all, other than this one that I found, programs specifically for women about professional development, and tailored directly to us about like how to use our voice, how to harness our power, things like that. And so it's a great space for women to hear from other women and connect with other women, and really gain the professional skills necessary to succeed. And when we talk about things, again, like the questions in this chat box about networking, and that we offer many opportunities there for students to network. And so that's a great resource as well. And then I will drop the link to the next thing that we're doing for law students actually tomorrow. And I think it could benefit a lot of you. So tomorrow we have a webinar. It's called Finding Your Path. And I think it's great because there might have been a question about this one in the chat that I saw, but the webinar is going to explore multiple ways you can use your JD. So this is one of those events where if you don't know if you want to be an attorney, or you don't know if you want to go to law school, this is a great way to hear about how people have used their law degree that may or may not be within the realm of what you typically think, right? Like it might not be to become a litigator or prosecutor and be in court all the time. So you're going to hear from people who have used their JD in very unique ways. And so I think that would be a great opportunity for you all if you're still trying to determine whether law school is right for you. So let me drop the link for you all real quick. Okay, there you go. So you can register that. Like I said, that webinar is tomorrow. And so if you're interested in it, or if you're studying for finals right now and you can't watch it, but you want to get the recording, go ahead and register. And I can't wait to see you all there as well. And so that's some of the things we offer for law students. One of my favorite things that we offer to law students, I talked about a little bit before, is the fellowship program. That's how I got involved with Miss JD, and that's as a law student, that's how I continued to stay involved with Miss JD post law school. And so it's a really special program to me. And like I said earlier, it provides you with mentorship from top leaders in the legal profession, women and men, across the nation. And so it's been great. I still keep in touch with my mentor, but what was even better is the group of 12 women that I was co-fellows with, who now serve on the board with me of Miss JD and who we keep in touch with very often. And so that was a great opportunity for me to not only network up, right, with my mentor, but also what I think is more important is networking across and networking with people who were at that time, 3Ls with me. And now we're all across the nation. And these are women that I have that support me and I support them all across the nation. So, when we talked about my approach to networking, I really think it's important to network across just as much as it is to network up, if not even more important, because these are the people who are going to be growing with you as you grow. And so that's the fellowship program. And lastly, before we open it up to questions, is the public interest scholarship, which is another thing that's super important to me because, as you heard, I'm a public interest attorney. I've worked at a nonprofit for the last 5 years. And even now going into academia, it's still a public interest field. And so we offer internships for law students who are seeking public interest we offer scholarships for law students who are seeking public interest internships. Speaking for myself, I did public interest internships, that's a tongue twister, all through law school, especially over the summer. And if you know anything about DC, it's very expensive to live in. And so I had these unpaid internships in DC. And I was a broke law student. And that's really detrimental to people who are trying to do good in the legal profession, to have these internships where they're unpaid. And so opportunities like this to get an internship, to seek a public interest, to get a scholarship to seek a public interest internship is very vital to people who want to give back to the greater good. And so that's why I hold it really close to my heart. And this year we're going to be giving out a lot of money to people who are seeking those internships. So if you're in law school and want to go public interest, but are nervous about the costs that are associated with having an unpaid internship, that's a great way for you to really seek out what you're passionate in. So I think I have said everything that I can say. I definitely am tired of hearing my voice. And so I want to hear some other people's or read your questions. And so I'm happy now to, open it up to questions. And definitely, if I haven't answered your question like I thought I did with providing the Miss JD information, please just send it again in the chat and we can get more in depth with that.
Malia, I had a question about the pre-law summit that you guys held. I know that they recorded a lot of those sessions. Is there any way that they can still gain access to the materials from the summit?
Yes, let me pull it up now on my computer. As we like give people a chance to think about their questions, I'll pull it up and drop the link in the chat.
Okay. Does anybody else have questions for Malia? Feel free to drop them in the chat, and once she's done, she can answer them.
I do. Hi, my name is Christina Brown. I just want to know, does Miss JG prepare you for like your 1L experience? I think that's the thing that I worry about. Not just about getting in, but like doing, really well my first year, since that the grades are kind of like, I guess, the compass to like where you're going to be ending up, in terms of internships and then post law school.
Awesome. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm getting a little caught. I think that's a great question. I'm going to answer it, but I think I didn't copy the right link. So give me 1 second to get that video link that Angie asked for, and I will answer that. That was okay. Awesome. Sorry about that, y'all. Again, it's hard to work since I don't have my work screen anymore. I only have one screen that I'm working on. So does Miss JD prepare you for the 1L experience? I think that's a great question. And very interesting, because I just got an email across my desk the other day that which was a proposal for this specific event. Not to say that's something we're going to do, but somebody did propose like we should do an event for incoming 1Ls to prepare them for that experience. And so it's definitely something that we're looking into to figure out what type of programming and information we can provide. But there's many things that Miss JD already provides to that. So one, I will start with, Miss JD started as a blog. We were one of the top legal blogs in the nation. And so we have a wealth of information from years ago until now about any topic that you can see, that you can think of at all. So if you go to missjd.org, that's ms-jd.org, that is where our blog resides. And you can go and type in, 1L preparation, for instance, and I'm sure, hundreds of blogs will pop up about that one topic. And you can do that about anything, networking, pre-law. If you go to our blog, you'll find a bunch of resources about that. Another thing that I will say is when you join our online community, I'm only one person, and I can definitely give everybody the advice that I have, but what I know, because it's the same thing when I ask advice of other people, one shoe does not fit all. You have to ask, a bunch of people and get varied responses and then figure out what fits best for you. So joining the online community is great because there's a feature in there where you can ask a question. So if you have a question specifically about preparing for 1L, like, what book should I be reading before 1L? Or, is there any preparation that I need to be doing, by 1L? You can ask that question into the group, and I'll answer. And probably what I do when I answer those questions is I go to the Miss JD blog and I say, here's some blogs we have about it, right? But then somebody else is going to answer and give you their answers, and Angie's going to answer and give you her response, and you'll have 20 responses from people with different perspectives, and then you get to sift through and figure out what makes the most sense for you. And so I do think that we have resources that will prepare you for 1L in that regard. And hopefully we have some more tailored, just like the PreLaw Bootcamp, right? Hopefully we can create a program in the future that would be more tailored specifically to preparing you for the 1L. But that is not something that we have at this time. But you will get a lot of responses if you ask that same question in our online community.
Would that be will this community be best to answer in terms of non-traditional students, like people who have work experience, who are not coming out of college, going directly to law school?
For sure. And so one of the things about the online community, like I talked about earlier, is there's a bunch of groups you can join, right? So for me, for instance, the groups that I'm a part of in our online community is first generation law students, first generation attorneys, things like that. One of our groups is like, is non-traditional law students, So, and even we get some, there might be a specific too, like if you're non-traditional because of military or because of parenthood or whatever, we have specific groups for that as well. And so you can definitely, if you want to get very specific and only ask it to those set of individuals, you can join that group and ask it in there.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you for that question. Oh, it looks like the summit link isn't working, the Vimeo. Let me try one more time. And it might be, let me see. I might have to, so that I don't waste too much time. What I can do is I can send the specific link to Angie afterwards, and maybe we can circulate it to the group, because I don't want to spend time with y'all wasted with me trying to find the right link, because I'm not the most technologically advanced. So happy to, open the floor to any more questions. If you want to ask them out loud, that would be great. And like I said earlier, if you asked a question in the chat that maybe I overlooked or I didn't get to, please feel free to ask that again, and I'm happy to circle back to it. Oh, I see one. What is a typical day for me? Well, I can tell you what a typical day for me at my legal aid was, and my life now and my life in the next couple of months as I transition to academia. Not quite sure what it's going to look like, but I'm excited about that adventure. But a typical day for me in the public interest field, I'm specifically doing family law on behalf of survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault. As you probably hear from many attorneys, if you ask this question, there is no typical day, but I can tell you what my duties were and how that might play out. And so what I very much enjoyed about being a litigator is going to court. That was one of the fun things for me to do, especially pre-COVID when I can be in person. And so depending on the day, I might be in court in front of a judge. For family law, it's mostly bench trials, which means you're in front of the judge only and not in front of a jury. And it can be for anything. It can be a status hearing where the judge is just checking in on the status of the kids and the family, or it can be a trial where we're trying to prove that my client was a victim of abuse so she can get a restraining order, she or he, but based on the cases that came in front of my desk, typically she could get a restraining order against her abuser. And so that would be what going to court looks like. Sometimes I would be communicating with opposing counsel, meaning that the party had an attorney. If the party doesn't have an attorney in a civil case, they are not appointed an attorney. And so I will be talking to the other party directly. If I'm not in court though, then I'm in the office preparing for court. And that is calling people who want to be witnesses or who I want to be witnesses and who my client wants to be witnesses in the case, talking to them about their testimony or what they know, trying to get records that I need from police stations, law enforcement, shelters, schools, and preparing, evidence for court, testimony for court, and just prepping to make sure that when I do show up in court, I know my case front and back. And I think that is, I say all the time, the superpower of new attorneys, early career attorneys, because we are so nervous and want to make sure that we're right, that we know our cases front to back, versus sometimes experienced attorneys rest on their laurels and show up and may not know the entire facts of their case or what have you, but we over prepare, and that has always worked out in my favor in this field so far. If I'm not preparing for court or in court, I give a lot of trainings as well on domestic violence, on family law, on representing survivors of domestic violence, many things of that nature. So there's no typical day for me, but that is a handful of duties that I do on a near daily basis that could probably piece together into a typical day.
We had another question. Do you have any advice on personal statements or diversity statements?
Ooh, okay, personal statements. So I will say, again, this advice is based off what I did nearly 10 years ago. And when I talk about personal statements, I'm not sure that I did the right thing, but I will talk about what I did. But I love to write, and that might be why I'm about to be a legal writing professor. And so my personal statement was definitely very personal to me. And I talked about why I wanted to, I talked about why I want to represent survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault and family law matters. And so what I will say is what was really unique to me is a lot of people do not go into law school knowing what they want to do. Like very few people say they want to go into law school doing one thing and end up doing that thing. So that's why I'm not sure if my advice fits everybody, because in my personal statement, I wrote about representing survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault in family law matters. And 5 years later, post law school, that's what I'm doing, and what I've been doing for the last 5 years, and that's not typical. So I wrote a personal statement that was very personal to me and talked about why I wanted to practice this area of law, specifically on behalf of domestic violence survivors. And I wrote it in maybe I guess what I would say is like a narrative form. It was more of like a story, which I'm just not sure if that's how personal statements are supposed to be written. But I'm always a fan of authenticity, and so I try to be my unique and own self all the time. And so I try to let my voice and my personality shine through in all that I do. And it worked out for me. I got accepted into the school based on that. But I'm sure that many other students took many different approaches to it. And we all ended up in the same place. And so I say, be authentic to yourself in your personal statement. And if you don't know what area of law you want to do, you don't have to be like me and be very tied to an idea of what you want to do. I think it's fine to say you want to explore, because that ends up being what a lot of people do in law school anyways. Angie, I think you might know a lot more on this than I do. And yes, thank you, Angie. She typed it into the Miss JD blog. That's exactly what I would do, and find what people who are professionals on personal statements have to say.
Yeah, so there's tons of resources out there on how to write a personal statement. I think the hardest thing about writing personal statements is they're personal. So they're going to be different from everyone. And I know that's not incredibly helpful. But trust me, like if you read some of these stories on the Miss JD blog, that's, a great place to get started. They'll tell you, here's some do's and don'ts, some general guidelines, and here's just how to get started, how to think through what are the most important parts of your story. One of the things that I think is really important, because I'm not one of these writers that can just like write down an outline and fill out the outline and boom, there's a beautiful personal statement. Like that's just not my writing process. It's a little more chaotic than that. So for me, it helps me to talk through a bunch of themes. And so like what I did when I was writing my personal statement was I just tried to think through like, why did I even become interested in law school in the first place? What are some of the things that I did that pushed me more towards wanting to go to law school? And I just started writing down different ideas on sticky notes and just like putting it up on a whiteboard and trying to like explore more about what's in my journey. Then I literally just called up one of my friends and just kind of brainstormed with them like what is interesting about my journey, because sometimes for you who has these lived experiences, it's hard for you to know what other people would find interesting about you. So sometimes it helps to just have a friend where you would just explain to them like, hey, I'm writing my personal statement for law school. I'm just trying to like brainstorm some ideas. Will you like noodle around some ideas with me? And most people will say yes. And then talk to them a little bit about, okay, so this is kind of what I'm supposed to be writing about, whatever the prompt is from the school, because keep in mind that most schools will have some sort of prompt. And it might be a really, really broad prompt, but it'll still be a prompt. So you want to make sure you answer exactly what the school asks you. So, then take that prompt and just start brainstorming and noodle it around with people and talk to them about, okay, well, here's some of the things that I'm thinking about. Here's some of the things that I'm thinking about. That'll just help you like get broader. You have to go broader before you can go specific. Then make sure that you're following the guidelines that they put in these blog articles. So typically those guidelines will say, don't mention things that are pre-college. So like high school, usually not all that important, unless it was like such a super influential moment in your life that just like shoved you in the direction that you have to, you really, really have to go to law school. But, read through these articles and make sure that you're following those guidelines. What law schools really want to know at the end of the day is, why are you doing this? Are you prepared to do this? Do you really know what you're getting into? And, do you have the skills that you need to succeed? And are you going to bring something unique to their law school environment? Like those are the things that they're looking for in your personal statement. So those are the questions that you need to be asking yourself when you read through this essay. Does this communicate to you? Why are you doing law school in the first place? Are you prepared? Have you mentioned something about your qualifications and, that you're academically prepared to do this, or you're at a good point in your life to do this? Sometimes people want to write about really, really personal things, but they dig into the personal things so much that all they talk about is like, oh my gosh, my whole life is falling apart right now. And the admissions officers are probably going to be like, well, is this person able to go to law school right now? We don't really know. So like, make sure that if you're writing about something super personal, that you're tying it into, yes, I still want to go to law school and I've geared up and I'm prepared and I can do this. It should still, even if it is really personal and it might be kind of a darker, more serious story, there should be, an arc there to show that overall it was a positive experience. And then overall, it has led you to be super motivated to do law school for a specific reason. So you definitely want to, be more personal and specific will get you away from the cliches that's just like, I want to go to law school to help people. That's like typically the cliche, right? But the more specific you are about, okay, what motivated you to do that? Did you experience something in your life that made you want to help a specific group of people or a specific type of person, or, work in specific legal issues or things like that? It just helps to kind of tease out the more specifics that make it personal to you rather than just being a cliche.
Here's awesome, Angie. I did have some questions that I wanted to answer. I scrolled back to make sure that we answered all of them. And it seemed like there were at least 2 about the same topic that I think I can give some advice on. And it was, where did it go? What should law students do to figure out what kind of law they want to study or would be passionate about? And then somebody else said, like, when should you decide what you want to specialize in the law field? And so just to that, it kind of touches on what I said earlier. So I knew I wanted to go into law. I knew I wanted to do family law. And so I did take my 3L year. I took a clinic in family law that was a whole year long, and we represented in the child welfare system, which was great. Every other internship I had, like summer internship, was outside of the family law realm. I interned at the EEOC, which is the Federal Agency for Employment Law. And so I got to learn employment law and try to figure out whether that's where I wanted to specialize in it. And it was not, I did another internship with like juvenile justice, the DC juvenile justice system, which was great experiences. But I realized that is not what I want to do either. And so I think internships in law school, and honestly classes, I took education classes and things like that. I think you should use those experiences to really figure out what you want to do. And so if you're like me and you kind of you have an interest in something, maybe explore other opportunities to see if you've had blinders on this whole time and there's something else you may be interested in. Or if you don't know what you want to do, take varied experiences, apply widely to opportunities, and figure out what you want to do through your internships, through those classes. Once you get out of your 1L year, you can take much more fun classes that have to do with very specific areas of law. So you could take immigration law, you can take, pretty much anything, especially, space and technology law, just things like that. There's areas of law that you don't even know about now. And so once you get into law school, you can really just seek out opportunities to learn about all those areas. And that's how you really figure out what you want to do. And if you graduate and you still don't know what you want to do, that's fine as well. Not everybody, everybody changes their mind and decides they want to do something different, and that's fine. And so you can still keep learning even after law school if you're not too sure.
Yeah, I want to talk about that too a little bit, is that you don't have to wait till law school to start exploring. You can start exploring now by talking to different lawyers in different areas and doing informational interviews and learning more about their journeys and why they chose their particular area of law. Because here's something that, happened to me before going to law school. I went to law school knowing I wanted to practice intellectual property law only because I started off like not knowing at all about any different types of law. I found a mentor who introduced me to a bunch of different lawyers. So I got to talk to lots of people from lots of different backgrounds. And I eventually discovered that trademark and copyright law was a thing. I didn't even know that was a thing. And then, so once I started talking to this trademark and copyright lawyer, this was before applying to law school at all. He started telling me more about that world. And specifically for that area, it's a very, very niche area, and not all law schools really teach it well. So if you are talking to different lawyers, you should be trying to get a sense like, is this a super like specialized area, or is this like a really broad area? Because if it's a really broad area, any number of law schools can prepare you for it. If it's just like corporate law, like any number of law schools are probably going to be able to prepare you for it. Immigration, any law school can probably prepare you for these really, really large areas. Now, if you're picking something super specialized or something that's an emerging area, so like data privacy, cybersecurity, cannabis law, entertainment, sports, those types of really niche areas, there may be only a limited number of law schools that actually have programs that allow you to get experience in those areas. And so you may want to start your exploration earlier so that you can make sure you get to the right law schools that have the programs in the places that you're interested in. But if you think that you are interested in one of these like super broad practice areas, then maybe you can, go to any number of law schools. But I do want to just put that out there, that there are some highly specialized areas that it's probably in your best interest to know more, that you want to get into that area and to pick your law schools particularly for that practice area. And it's really hard to get a sense of how broad or small any particular practice area is without talking to lawyers. So I'm sorry, but you're going to have to talk to lawyers. Like, I know we're just painful to talk to sometimes, but I promise you, a lot of lawyers are willing to share their experiences as long as you're pretty targeted about your ask and you're respectful about their time. So, make sure that when you're reaching out to lawyers, just be really respectful of the fact that they're probably going to be busy. Ask for a limited amount of time, 30 minutes, do a Zoom chat, do an informational interview, just learn more about their career path, so that you can do some of that exploration before you get into law school. Because Leah will tell you, when you get into law school, it is busy. You do not have a whole lot of time to just be musing around about what you want to be when you grow up. So, and you only have 2 summers when you're in law school. So you pretty much and maybe they'll allow you to split your summer with 2 different internships. So like 4 chances at best to really work in different organizations. So that's not a ton of chances. If you really want to be safe about it, just start your exploration way early. That's all.
So I'll add to that too. There were at least 2 things that I wanted to touch on. One was like, oh goodness, I just completely, thinking about law school, thinking about where you want to go based on, what you want to do. That's why I chose Howard, right? I knew I wanted to do family law. I searched what the top schools for family law were. Only a handful, probably less than 5, had family law focuses. And Howard, had this family law certificate program, and it had a bunch of other benefits that and opportunities and things that fit what I wanted. And so that's why I decided to go there. And although like you probably, family law is one of those things where, it's on a lot of bars. And so a lot of schools can prepare you for it, but they might not give me the same opportunities like Howard to really focus my writing and everything that I did there on family law. But, you might also want to think family law is a state law type of thing. And so one of the things I had to do when I moved back to Texas to take the bar was decide whether or I had to decide whether I wanted to learn family law in a state outside of where I was going to practice, because I'm not learning Texas specific family law. And, there's some issues that Texas deals with, like community property, that the majority of states don't deal with. And so I had to learn that when I studied for the bar. And, you might want to go to a state where you're going to practice in, so you don't have to do that. So that's something you want to think about as well. And then briefly, because I know we're running out of time, Angie, is about speaking to attorneys before law school. I think that's great that you had that opportunity. And I kind of had that opportunity with my internship, but I will say that I did not know any other attorneys other than the one I interned with. Yes, my mom was a paralegal, but it's not like she had a lot of capital at the place that she was at to where she could take me and introduce me to a bunch of lawyers and speak to them. So it definitely, it doesn't go over my head at all that being able to interact with attorneys prior to law school is a privilege. I had a bunch of law classmates whose best friends were attorneys or in law school, or whose parents were. And I just didn't have that opportunity prior to law school. So I did have to do a lot of learning in law school about a lot of stuff. And so I want to be that person for other people. I don't want anybody to have to go to law school and say they did not have a chance to talk to another lawyer, especially, if you're a woman of color, a person of color. I want you to be able to network with attorneys and be able to answer those questions prior to law school. So I already see that a bunch of you requested me on LinkedIn. Please continue to do so. And I'm going to drop my email in the chat, because if you want 30 minutes to talk, I might talk your ear off for an hour rather than 30 minutes, because I love to talk. But please reach out to me, because I want people to be able to get some of those questions out prior to law school.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Malia. I really appreciate you being here and sharing all these amazing resources with students. Miss JD was a great resource for me when I was going to law school, and they have even more programs now. I don't think they had as much pre-law stuff actually when I was going, but that was so long ago. But yeah, you guys should definitely take advantage of all of their resources. They're really, really wonderful. And thank you so much for being so generous with your time, Malia, and offering to allow people to reach out to you. All of you should definitely take her up on it, because it is very rare to be able to talk to lawyers. But also, join the Miss JD community, because I have seen a lot of lawyers in there that are willing to share their time. So definitely check it out. It's, I think, the only one I know of that's really collaborative that way. You could ask advice on the law school Reddit, but Reddit's kind of a crazy place, and you never really know what you're going to get. So I think the Miss JD community is a lot more supportive. So I would definitely check it out. And if you guys have any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to either of us. And we are taking the rest of the month off. I will be going on vacation, but I will be back in the beginning of May, and we will be doing more meetups. So I will see you back here soon. And if you haven't signed up for our mailing list that allows you to get our newsletter with all of our events, be sure to do that. I will drop that in the chat box so that you can sign up. And I look forward to seeing you all again very, very soon. Thanks so much, Malia.
Thank you. This was great. Bye, everyone.
Bye, all.